City. Please welcome in.
Charles Carney in the house. He's supposed to be doing this with me. Okay. So this afternoon, we discussed where to have the spring retreat, resistance retreat. And so I volunteered to do something in Kansas City. And we're tentatively planning it for March 25th, which is the day after the assassination anniversary of Romero. And so we will not be doing it in connection with Peaceworks. It will be Catholic workers, so we can do what we want. So anyway, keep that date, in mind. And what we're going to do is a skit that Tommy wrote, and it's a new street theater troupe in Kansas City. And Tommy is very creative. He's written about 4 skits, and we've been performing on the streets in Kansas City. And the first one we're just going to do one, is based on the fact that in June, there was a report in the media that China is building a military base of some sort in Cuba. And so we all know that the US and NATO have been active in Ukraine. And I actually saw just now on the media that the US is going to send something called the ATACMS ballistic missile system over there to Ukraine. So, and then, of course, people know in 1962 we almost had a World War III with nuclear weapons because Russia tried to put a base in Cuba. So that's the story behind this skit. So I am a host from CNN. And so, hello. I'm the CNN news anchor for World War News. 60 years ago, your families almost died in World War III caused by the Cuban Missile Crisis when the Russian army tried to build missile bases in Cuba too close to America. In 2014, the Ukrainian missile crisis started when the American army planned to build missile bases too close to Russia. And today, in 2023, America's greatest rival, China, is building a military base in Cuba, and it's still too close to America. Anyone? No way. This is another character. Didn't China learn anything when America almost started World War III over the Russian missile crisis in Cuba 60 years ago? Apparently not. But CNN and World War News is finally broadcasting a long overdue comparison of all 3 identical missile crises. And yes, the American government is coming unglued again. General Odd.
I am CNN reporter. I am CNN senior geopolitical analysis and former U.S. official, Dr. General Odd. I have here in my hand the very first rigorous historical compare and contrast analysis of the 1962 Russian plan to build missile bases in Cuba versus the 2014 USA plan to build missile bases in Ukraine, and now also versus the brand new 2023 Chinese plan for missile bases in
Cuba. Yes! And all other corporate news shows have run away from the painfully obvious missile crisis comparison. So remember,
you heard it first here at
CNN.
But wait, what do you even mean by Ukrainian missile crisis? Nobody ever calls it that. Oh sure, I mean, Since 2014, America has been threatening to build Army and Air Force bases in Ukraine that obviously would have missiles of all kinds aimed at Russia. But we all know Russia has missile bases, and only Russia can cause a missile crisis. American missiles are like puppies and rainbows, never controversial, never a crisis. Jeez Louise.
What I mean is that CNN and only CNN has decided to stop the fake news double talk. We call a military base full of military missiles a missile base. And we call a missile base, a missile crisis, no matter who causes it. So remember, you heard it first, right here on CNN, the No Fake News Network. So, Dr. General Odd, what has your extensive research uncovered about the huge difference between all of these identical missile crises?
Thank you. For 9 long years since America has been planning to build NATO missile bases in Ukraine, I have been rigorously analyzing the huge difference between all of these very similar plans to build missile bases too close to an enemy's homeland. I finally have the first and only academically rigorous geopolitical analysis right here in my hand.
Okay. So what is the huge difference?
The huge difference is that the shoe is on the other foot in the Ukrainian missile crisis. So there is no comparison because USA and NATO obviously did escalate on Putler's butt, but by seriously planning atom bomb missile bases in Ukraine. It said giggles and snorts.
That's hilarious.
You did a great job.
I know, right. But not a problem because then the great peacemaker, President Biden, warned evil Russian dictator Putler, that he had better not retaliate against the provocation. So therefore, retroactively, it was not a provocation at all.
Wait just a sec, Dr. General. That doesn't really make any sense. But whatever. I'm just trying to find out why the identical Ukrainian and Cuban missile crises are treated so differently by you foreign policy experts and the entire fake news media and every last stinking politician.
Well, sweetie, maybe you just don't understand foreign policy experts myself, because when Putler violently retaliated against the threat to put American atom bomb missiles right on the Russian border, it was with a huge invasion and a horrible war on Ukraine. And that reaction was way more violent than the experts warned.
Did the president's mistakes about the Russian reaction to American threats contribute to starting this horrible war that is devastating Ukraine?
Oh, no, of course not. Because in my expert opinion of how I want Russia to think about Russian security, the violent reaction to the provocation was very excessive. So therefore, retroactively, there was no provocation, none at all. It was a retroactively unprovoked invasion. A retroactively unprovoked invasion.
A retroactively unprovoked invasion. Come on, everybody!
A retroactively unprovoked invasion.
A retroactively unprovoked invasion. Look, General, I know you heard that gibberish right here on CNN a million times, but it's still the silliest darn thing I have ever heard. But hey, you're the so-called expert, so why can't we have excuses for peace talks instead of excuses for war?
We don't need no stinking détente. I think that means a period of peace, I don't know, but we don't need no stinking détente. There's no money in it.
Okay. Well, dear World War News followers, General Odd's opinions may seem to be warlike and fully aligned with the financial interests of war profiteers, so we want to dispel some unfounded conflict of interest accusations from Putin lovers.
Yes, right. I personally assure you that just because I've spent my entire career in the USA military-industrial complex profiteering from weapons of mass destruction, and just because I also have a lucrative job as an influencer for war-loving fake news company, which is entrenched in deep inside the deeply entrenched USA military-industrial complex, I am nevertheless an absolutely objective and impartial expert in all matters of war and peace. So if there ever arises a geopolitical problem for which military escalation is not the best solution, I assure you that I, Dr. General Odd, will recommend that military escalation is the best solution. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Dr. Strangelove.